he was hiding in a bush, that could easily be explained by the fact that 3 weeks before, Duane had announced that he wanted to study for his sergeant's exam. Richard had been suspicious from the start, if only because Duane had never before tried to advance his career in any way. Frankly, it was sometimes a struggle to get him to attend his annual appraisal. Something was up. Richard was sure of it. And when he learned that San Marie police regulations allowed officers studying for exams to spend a morning a week at home for personal study, he realized what it was. Duane had embarked on the whole endeavour as an elaborate ruse to bunk off work one morning a week, hadn't he? That's why Richard had spent the last hour hiding inside a bush, a pair of binoculars clamped to his eyes, while trying to ignore the spiders and other stinging insects that could at any moment be crawling into his shirt collar or up his trouser leg. And he was very definitely ignoring the rivers of sweat that were running down his back, and the feeling of itching and prickly heat as it built up on his skin where it was touching his thick woolen suit. But he wasn't leaving his bougainvillea bush, not until he'd proven that Duane was skiving. Richard saw a movement and swivelled his binoculars just in time to see Duane throw back the curtains of his bedroom window and yawn. Luckily for Richard, the windowsill and brickwork saved him from finding out if the bottom half of Duane was as similarly naked as the top half. But this was the confirmation Richard had been looking for. He checked the time on his wristwatch. It was nearly 11 a.m. "Got you," Richard muttered to himself. Richard smashed out of the bush, opened the crumbling picket gate that led onto Duane's property, and then, when he found that the picket gate had come off in his hands, he put the whole thing to one side so he could stride, unencumbered, up to Duane's front door. With a sharp rat-a-tat of his knuckles against the door, Richard announced his presence. There was no answer, but Richard wasn't in a rush. He waited a little while longer, and then he knocked on the door again, but much louder this time. After a few more seconds, Richard was gratified to hear the slap of feet as Duane approached. The security chain rattled as it was unhooked, and the door finally opened. "And what time do you call this?" Richard said, pointing to his wristwatch, before realizing that the door hadn't been opened by Duane. In fact, it had been opened by a woman with mussed-up blonde hair, and she was barefoot, Richard noticed, just before he realized that this was because she wasn't wearing any trousers, for that matter. As for the rest of her clothes, it very much seemed to Richard as though the woman was holding a bath towel loosely across her front, and was, possibly, otherwise, completely naked. Oh, heavens, Richard realized in a panic. The woman had answered the door wearing next to no clothes. He immediately fixed his eye on an area of space directly above the woman's left shoulder, causing the woman to laugh easily as she turned her head to call back into the room. "Duane, it's your boss," she said, with what Richard recognized as an Edinburgh accent. Before Richard could ask how this woman could possibly know who he was, she turned and padded off into the recesses of the house, Richard making sure to keep his eye-line fixed firmly mid-air. "What are you doing here, Chief?" Duane said as he came to the door. Richard finally lowered his eyes and was relieved to see that Duane had thrown on a bright blue silk dressing gown that depicted Chinese fighting dragons, even if it only just reached down to the top of his thighs. "What am I doing here? Sure, you're supposed to be at work." Richard was rendered almost speechless. Almost. "You answer the door and have the gall to say that it's me who should be at work? Oh, I see. Something's up at the station, and you've come to pull me from me books." "Your books?" "Sure, you know what it's like. Thursday is for home study." As Duane said this, he winked slowly for his boss's benefit. "Why did you just wink at me?" "Because, Chief, Thursday is for home study," Duane said with another slow wink. "But that's clearly not what's going on here, especially as I just saw you open the curtains to your bedroom wearing next to nothing, not to mention your friend I just met, whoever she is." "That's Amy," Duane said with a delighted smile.